You had your legacy. Now you want mine? Over my dead body. Isabella's voice cracked through the courtroom like glass shattering. Her hands trembled, but her spine stayed straight. Carter toned, lips parted in confusion. Amber didn't blink, but her fingernails dug into her designer clutch like it was the only thing keeping her upright. And then, Isabella did the unthinkable. She stood, reached into her briefcase, and pulled out the one thing no one in that courtroom expected. Your Honor, the Parrillo Trust owns a land DeLowe Systems is built on. My grandfather helped create it. And I'm not just a single mother, I'm Isabella Barnes. And I will not be erased. The courtroom had been silent until now, save for Carter's attorney listing every deficiency Isabella had ever carried. Single, underemployed, emotionally unstable, according to them. A woman unfit to raise a daughter in a world of power and prestige. Amber sat coolly beside Carter, hair perfectly curled, lips perfectly glossed. Her posture screamed perfection. Her eyes said something colder, possession. They thought it was a done deal. They thought Isabella was just another woman the system would swallow quietly. But they didn't know who she was. Not really. Isabella's voice was clear, but her body ached with years of silence. Years of hiding. She hadn't spoken the Parrillo name out loud in a decade. Not since she'd walked away from Carter and everything he stood for. But she wasn't walking anymore. She was standing, and this time, the truth stood with her. Judges don't usually react. But even the Honorable Marion Ellis blinked. Twice. Carter stayed, unsure if he should be angry or scared. Amber looked like she'd seen a ghost. And in a way, she had, because they hadn't just tried to take a daughter. They had picked a fight with an entire legacy. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you more than you know. It's been a difficult stretch with all the technical issues, but by God's grace we're finally steady again. Thank you for every moment you stayed, waited, and returned. Your support is a reason this channel is still standing. Before we start, allow me to speak a quick blessing over everyone watching. To the women, may God strengthen your spirit, quiet every storm in your heart, and surround you with uncommon favor. To the men, may God guide your steps, multiply your efforts, and give you wisdom that opens doors no one can shut. And may His protection remain over each of you, wherever you are. Amen. Now, before we dive in, I need to ask you for something important. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Not because it's routine, but because every single story I bring here is crafted for you. And when you're not subscribed, I feel like I'm telling these stories into the dark, not knowing if the very people they were meant for will ever see them. My USA family, my UK family, you are a huge part of this community. When you subscribe, you keep this channel alive. When you don't, I feel that silence. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming tomorrow. So hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let me know you're here. Let me know I'm not talking to an empty room. Now, let's get into today's story. But to understand how a quiet mother from Bronzeville flipped a courtroom upside down with one sentence, you need to go back. Back to the moment Isabella walked away from Carter DeLowe with nothing but a suitcase, a baby growing inside her, and a secret powerful enough to destroy his empire. Isabella Barnes hadn't spoken her grandfather's name in almost a decade. Not when she gave birth to Ayanna in a modest hospital room at Mercy, Chicago. Not when she signed up for WIC. Not when she bought Ayanna's first box of crayons at a clearance aisle in Jewel-Osco. And not even when the community art center she now ran faced budget cuts, and a man from the city whispered, "You know, one phone call to the Parrillos could fix this." She just smiled, shook her head, and said, "We're fine." Because they were. Ayanna was 8 now. Bright, sharp, full of questions and wonder and rhythm. She loved art, wild, messy, unplanned art. But she also loved science, robotics, space, dinosaurs. She was the kind of child who asked if trees could talk when no one was watching, who spent hours building paper cities with cardboard people, who named her sneakers like they were her friends. And every morning, when Isabella braided her daughter's hair before school, Ayanna would look at her reflection and say, "Do I look like someone who belongs on the moon?" And Isabella would say, "You look like someone who already owns it." They lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville. Top floor, leaky faucet, loud neighbors, But inside, it was warm. There were dollar store frames on the walls holding Ayanna's art, mismatched mugs filled with colored pencils, post-its on the fridge with little affirmations Isabella wrote just for her. Be brave today. Kindness is louder than money. You're already enough. Isabella worked at the ** Westlake Community Arts Center, a place she helped build quietly behind the scenes. She never put her name on the plaques, never told the board how their original seed funding had come from an anonymous trust tied to Parrillo Holdings. She was done with that world. She didn't want Ayanna to grow up in a house where wealth bought silence. She wanted her to grow up in one where voice mattered more than money. Saturdays were sacred. They woke up early, walked to Jewel Osco for groceries, a ritual. Ayanna got to choose one treat item for the week. Usually, it was a giant muffin. Sometimes, dinosaur gummies. After that, they took the red line to Grant Park. Ayanna would pull out her sketchbook and draw strangers, buildings, birds. She liked drawing clouds the most. Isabella would sit beside her with a cup of gas station coffee, watching her daughter live freely, brightly. They never talked about Carter. Ayanna didn't know him, had never asked. Isabella told herself that was enough. That love could fill the space her father left behind. But deep down, a question haunted her. What if the world didn't see love as enough? That question came back hard one Tuesday afternoon. The art center was quiet. Most of the students had gone home. Isabella was restacking canvases in the supply closet when she heard the front doorbell chime. She came out, wiping her hands on her jeans. A tall man in a crisp blue suit stood in the gallery entrance, holding a leather portfolio. Ms. Barnes? He asked. She hesitated. Yes. I have a certified delivery. Please sign here. He handed her a clipboard, then the envelope. She signed without thinking. Deliveries happened all the time for the gallery. But the envelope was heavy. Official. The kind that didn't belong in her world. When the man left, Isabella stood frozen in the middle of the art center, staring at it. Return address, Cook County Family Court, **L. She opened it with trembling fingers. Her eyes scanned the top line. Petition for custody, DeLowe v. Barnes. Her knees almost buckled. Carter DeLowe. After all these years. After ignoring her. Disappearing. Building a company. Marrying someone else. Now he wanted Ayanna. He was suing for full custody, claiming Isabella couldn't provide a suitable educational, social, or financial environment for a developing child. He called her unstable. He said his household was two-parent, financially sound, and equipped to give Ayanna the life she deserved. As if Isabella hadn't given her everything every single day. As if money ever tucked Ayanna in at night. She read the last line again. Filed by Carter DeLowe and Amber DeLowe. Amber, of course. The envelope slid from her hand and landed on the floor like a verdict. She sat down slowly, staring at her reflection in the glass doors across the gallery. And for the first time in years, she whispered her own full name out loud. Isabella Parrillo Barnes. She hadn't said it since the day Ayanna was born. She thought she could live a life beneath the radar, that she could raise her daughter quietly and the world would let them be. She thought Carter would never come back. She was wrong. They think I'm weak because I shop at Jewel Osco and take the train to work. But they don't know who I really am. If you've ever had to stay small to protect something big, maybe this story found you for a reason. You know what to do. The art center echoed with silence. Outside, the L train roared by, unbothered by the war that had just been declared inside her world. Isabella didn't cry. She picked up the envelope, folded it carefully, slid it into her tote bag next to Ayanna's lunchbox and a pack of oil pastels. Then she reached for her phone, not to call a friend, not to cry. She called a name she hadn't said aloud in years. Mr. Parrillo, she said softly. A pause. Then, it's Isabella. I need you. The envelope sat on the kitchen counter like a silent bomb. Isabella stared at it for the third time that night, still hoping the words inside had changed. Still hoping she'd imagined the name on the heading. Carter Alexander DeLowe versus Isabella Barnes. Petition for full legal and physical custody of minor child Ayanna Grace Barnes. It was real. He'd really done it. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to slow the rush of blood pounding behind her ears. Financial instability. One-parent household. Limited access to elite academic opportunities. The words were printed in cold, corporate font, but the message was loud. You're not enough. Not for the courts. Not for the future. Not for the daughter you raised on your own since birth. Isabella sat down at the small table in her kitchen, the same table Ayanna used for homework, painting, and dreaming. Her eyes burned. She whispered to no one. How did he even find out? She'd never posted Ayanna online, never listed Carter on a single form. She hadn't spoken his name in years. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. There was only one name she could call now, one she'd buried deep beneath a life she chose to live quietly. Mr. Jonathan Parrillo, her grandfather's closest friend, the man who used to walk her through the gardens of Parrillo Mansion like she was made of gold. She hadn't spoken to him since Ayanna was born. But now, she dialed. The line rang twice. Then, Isabella. His voice hadn't changed. It's me, she said quietly. I got something. From Carter. A pause. Then, sharp. What did he do? His suing for custody. Another pause. And then the voice shifted, not to panic, but to precision. Do you have the documents? Yes. Good. I'm going to put you in touch with someone. My son, Marcus. He runs legal for the Parrillo group now. I didn't want to pull them into this, she whispered. Not Ayanna. Not the name. But he left you no choice, did he? No, he didn't. The next morning, Isabella met Marcus Parrillo in a quiet boardroom overlooking the Chicago skyline. He read the petition, once, then again, slower. Then he looked at her. He's going to regret this. She looked at her hands. He thinks I'm weak. Marcus smiled. That he doesn't know who you are. That night, Isabella stood in Ayanna's bedroom, watching her daughter sleep. Peaceful, unbothered, still safe. But for how long? She reached down, gently brushed a curl off Ayanna's forehead. Then she stood up straight. If they want war, she whispered, we'll give them legacy. The silence in the DeLowe estate wasn't peaceful. It was a kind of stillness that came after disappointment, the kind that wrapped itself around cold marble floors and echoed off crystal chandeliers. Amber DeLowe stood in the bathroom of her Lincoln Park penthouse, staring at the third negative test in 4 months. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply slid the test into the trash bin beneath the sink, straightened her silk robe, and walked into the bedroom like it hadn't happened, like it wasn't breaking her. Carter was already dressed. Custom-tailored suit, Bluetooth in one ear, talking numbers with someone overseas. Amber watched him from the doorway. She used to feel lucky to be part of this world. The jets, the press, the photo ops. Now, all she felt was replaceable. Carter, she said calmly, stepping into the room. He ended the call. Yeah. I found something, she said, walking to the dresser. She opened the drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. He took it, opening it without suspicion. Inside were 3 photos. A little black girl with bright eyes, curly hair, and a wide smile, riding a scooter outside a community art center in Bronzeville. She's yours, Amber said. Her name is Ayanna. Carter blinked, then laughed. Is this a joke? She's yours, Amber repeated. I had a private investigator run the search. Her mother's name is Isabella Barnes. She used to go by Isabella Parrillo. He stopped breathing for a second. Parrillo? Amber nodded, slowly, watching his confusion settle in. Yes. That Parrillo. You knew her? I worked at the Parrillo farm. Years ago. She was an intern in their legal branch. Quiet. Always hiding. I remembered her face. Carter paced. Why didn't you tell me this before? Amber shrugged, the silk of her robe shifting with every step she took toward him. Because she wasn't important then. But now? She placed her hand on his chest. She's raising your daughter. Alone. In Bronzeville. While we sit up here with nothing but failed IVF and empty guest rooms. Carter said nothing. Amber leaned closer. She's a gallery worker now. No wealth. No power. She buried the Parrillo name like it shamed her. That child could be our future. Carter. Yours. Ours. She stepped back, her voice soft, sharp. We file for custody. We offer her a better life, one she can't compete with. And then, just before she left the room, she whispered, more to herself than to him, she'll never win. She's nobody now. The courtroom smelled like old money and fresh ambition. Carter sat at the plaintiff's table in a gray designer suit that probably cost more than Isabella's entire annual salary. Amber sat beside him, untouched, unreadable, a statue in heels. Across the aisle, Isabella sat quietly. No makeup, no designer bag, just a clean blouse, her natural curls pulled back, and eyes that held fire behind restraint. This wasn't a custody hearing. This was war. Carter's attorney, a polished man named Fletcher Briggs, stepped forward with the confidence of someone who always assumed the world would agree with him. Your Honor, he said, voice smooth as glass, Mr. DeLowe is a responsible, married father, operating a stable household with significant financial resources and a proven ability to provide for a child's future. He turned toward Isabella. Meanwhile, the respondent, Ms. Barnes, has no record of long-term employment, lives in a modest apartment in a high-crime district, and, according to our findings, refuses to disclose the identity of her child's father on any public record. He paused, which speaks volumes about the kind of secrecy Ayanna has been raised in. Isabella didn't flinch. Let them talk. Let them underestimate her. She'd been preparing for this her entire life, not the courtroom, but the silence, the judgment, the assumption that she was less than because she didn't lead with wealth. The judge didn't rule that day. It was just the beginning. But outside those courtroom doors, the media had already decided. Chicago Tribune, Millionaire CEO fights for secret daughter hidden by ex. Local news feed, Bronzeville mother under scrutiny in shocking custody battle. The narrative spread like fire, and Ayanna saw it. She came home from school that Friday, eyes swollen, arms crossed tight. They said I'm a secret, she whispered, barely looking up. They said Daddy didn't even know I was born, that you kept me from him. Is that true? Isabella dropped to her knees. No, baby, she said, holding her daughter close. You are not a secret. You are my everything. That night, Isabella sat in the quiet of her living room with Marcus Parrillo across from her. He slid a folder across the table. Inside, vendor contracts, supply chain dependencies, licensing rights, all linked to Parrillo-backed firms. If he wants to drag your name through the date, Marcus said, we'll remind the world his company was built on your family's foundation. The leak started the next morning. Anonymous, strategic. Inside DeLowe system silent ties to the Parrillo empire. Heiress fights back, the battle behind Chicago's tech giant. They are trying to rewrite my life before the ink even dries. But I've got the truth and receipts. If you've ever been forced to stay quiet while someone else told your story, you know what this moment means. You know what to do. Stay subscribed. The iron gates of Parrillo Mansion creaked open with a kind of authority Isabella hadn't felt in years. The long stone driveway was just as she remembered, lined with trimmed hedges, too perfect to feel real. It had been nearly a decade since she'd stepped onto this land, back when she still believed in fairy tale endings. Now, she was here for something far less romantic. Protection. Mr. Jonathan Parrillo waited for her at the front steps, hands folded behind his back. Older now. Slower, but the steel in his eyes remained untouched. You came home, he said. Isabella didn't smile. I didn't have a choice. Inside, the house hadn't changed. Marble floors, oak doors, walls filled with oil portraits of men who'd controlled Chicago from behind gold pens and silent contracts. Mr. Jonathan led her into the study, the same one where her grandfather had signed away millions with a nod and a handshake. He pulled a leather-bound folder from a drawer and laid it on the table. I had hoped you'd never need this, he said. Isabella opened it, breath catching in her throat. Inside were documents she didn't know existed. Ayanna Grace Barnes, named beneficiary of the Parrillo Family Trust. Effective from the moment of her birth. I added her myself, Jonathan said. Your grandfather would have wanted her protected. Isabella traced her daughter's name on the page with her fingertips. She doesn't even know this exists, she whispered. She doesn't need to, not yet. But it's time you remember who you are. Jonathan opened a second file. 3 contracts, all linking DeLowe systems to companies that didn't carry the Parrillo name on the surface, but were wholly owned subsidiaries beneath the legal ink. Cloud services, logistics, core data hosting. If we pulled even one of these, Jonathan said, his company would hemorrhage by Q2. He looked her in the eye. We could do it without ever mentioning your name. Isabella swallowed hard. She had the power to destroy Carter, not just in court, but in every boardroom he walked into. But something held her back. I don't want to ruin him, she said softly. I just want my daughter safe. Jonathan didn't flinch. And this is how we do it. Quietly, efficiently, strategically. He tapped the trust document again. Your daughter is not just your child. She's part of a dynasty. Some kids inherit toys. Others inherit trauma. Ayanna, she inherited a legacy she never asked for, and a mother strong enough to protect it. If you've ever had to wake up power you tried to bury, this story is a reminder. You know you have to subscribe. Ha ha ha. The glass wall conference room at Preston and Lockhart LLP felt colder than usual. Isabella sat quietly beside Marcus Parrillo, her lawyer's expression unreadable. Across from them sat Amber DeLowe, impeccably dressed, posture perfect, fingers laced like she still believed control was hers to hold. But control was slipping, because this wasn't a custody hearing. This was a deposition. And Isabella's team wasn't playing defense anymore. Marcus opened the folder slowly, letting the silence stretch. We've obtained internal correspondence between Mrs. Amber DeLowe and legal representatives at Heiress Corp, dated over the last 9 months. Amber's jaw tightened. Isabella didn't blink. Marcus continued, voice calm, deliberate. You emailed executives at Carter's primary competitor while actively involved in confidential family and business matters. Specifically regarding stock transfers and executive control of DeLowe systems. Amber said nothing, but her foot began to twitch under the table. This wasn't about custody, was it? Marcus said, leaning in, this was about leverage. You wanted Carter to gain full legal rights to Ayanna before you pulled the rug out from under him, and you were going to use that position to negotiate your stake. I want what's best for the child, Amber said quickly, forcing a smile. Marcus didn't even dignify it. Tell me, Mrs. DeLowe, why would Heiress be interested in a custody battle? Amber cracked. Because Carter's weak, she snapped, voice sharp. He's too sentimental. He wouldn't do what needed to be done, so I gave Heiress leverage. Silence. A long, thick silence. Then Marcus asked one final question. When did you learn Isabella was a Parrillo? Amber looked at Isabella, then at Carter, who sat off to the side, stunned silent. And then she admitted it. Before we got married. Carter turned, slowly. You knew she was a Parrillo. Amber opened her mouth. Close it again. That was her answer. The room shifted. Carter's face went pale. His lawyer scribbled notes frantically. And Isabella? She just watched. For once, she didn't have to speak. The truth was finally doing all the talking. Sometimes your enemies fight each other harder than they ever fought you. If you've ever survived betrayal and watched karma do what you couldn't, you already know what to do. Subscribe. This story's not done. The offer came in an envelope, no courtroom, no lawyer present. Just Carter, sitting across from Isabella in a downtown Chicago high-rise conference room, acting like he was negotiating a merger, not a child. He slid the document toward her, like it was a gift. $5 million, he said smoothly, tax-free. You will have weekends, holidays, full access to the best schools, best tutors, everything she needs. Isabella didn't touch the paper. She stared at him, really looked at him, and wondered how a man who once said he loved her could reduce Ayanna to a bargaining chip. A daughter isn't an asset. Carter, she said, voice calm, but sharp enough to cut. You're talking about her like she's an equity share. Carter leaned back, still trying to keep the upper hand. I'm offering you stability, Isabella. A better life for her. Private school. International trips. Generational wealth. She gave a soft laugh, almost sad. You think she needs all that? She asked. You think she's missing something because you didn't grow up in your mansion. She stood up slowly, walking toward the window. Chicago stretched wide beneath them, cold, powerful, full of contradictions. Like Carter, you know what she has? Isabella asked. She has late-night story times. She is someone who knows her favorite color changes every month. Who knows she's scared of thunderstorms but brave at the dentist. Who knows how she likes her toast, burnt on one side. She turned around. You've never spent 1 hour with her, Carter, and you think money makes you a father. Flashback. Rain pounding on their apartment roof. Isabella and Ayanna huddled under a blanket on the couch, flashlight in hand during a blackout. Ayanna had whispered, "Are we poor?" Isabella kissed her forehead. "We're rich in the ways that matter." Ayanna smiled and said, "Good. I didn't want to be boring." Back in the room, Isabella walked over to the offer and slid it right back to him. "You tried to buy her like she was part of your next investment pitch," she said. "But you can't afford what she's worth. Because you never loved me, Carter. And you sure as hell don't know her." Carter didn't reply. For the first time, he looked like a man unsure of what, if anything, he still controlled. Some people think love comes with a price tag. But if you've ever had to choose heart over comfort, truth over a check, then this story is already yours. You know what to do. Subscribe. The courtroom was still. It had been 4 weeks of filings, depositions, leaked contracts, media storms, and now it all came down to this. Isabella walked slowly to the witness stand, heels clicking softly against the polished wood floor. She didn't shake. She didn't rush. She stood tall. Carter sat across from her, lips tight. Amber's seat was empty. Her lawyer adjusted his tie, nodded once, and began. "Please state your full name for the record." Isabella took a breath. "My name is Isabella Barnes." A ripple moved through the gallery. Even the judge raised her eyebrows slightly. Carter blinked, as if hearing it for the first time, and maybe he was really hearing it. What followed wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. Her attorney presented Ayanna's trust documentation, signed at birth by Jonathan Parrillo himself. He laid out 3 vendor contracts linking DeLowe systems directly to shell companies under Parrillo Holdings, contract that, if severed, would leave Carter's tech empire gasping for air. Then came the final blow, email transcript from Amber's secret communications with Helix Corp, confirming her intent to push Carter out of his own company, using the custody case as leverage. Carter said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The judge delivered the ruling clearly and without delay. Full physical and legal custody of Ayanna Grace Barnes will remain with her mother, Isabella Barnes. Mr. DeLowe's petition is denied. Outside, the press had already gathered like vultures. CEO loses custody battle after shocking Heiress reveal. Parrillo legacy returns to spotlight amid courtroom drama. Carter left through the back exit. Amber had already stepped down from her position on the DeLowe Systems board earlier that morning. No statements were made. No victory speeches. But Isabella didn't need one. Because a real victory was waiting for her back home. 2 days later, the black iron gates of *** Parrillo Mansion *** opened slowly. Ayanna stood beside her, suitcase in one hand, a drawing pad in the other. She looked up at the towering estate. Ivy on stone. Generations of legacy behind those walls. "So," she asked softly, "we really live in a mansion now?" Isabella smiled and bent down beside her. "No, baby," she whispered. "We live in the truth now." All this time, I thought I was fighting one enemy. Turns out, they were fighting each other. If you've ever had to win quietly while they burned themselves down, this story was written for you. Subscribe, because there's more truth where that came from. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.